got a brother who I've been engaging with about this theory regarding Normer. Um, and it kind of gets to me anyway. Uh, it seems like it's putting forward this dynastic race theory that we know
Hmm.
a lot of people or a lot of races used to try to put forward about Kemet to say that the dynastic period wasn't founded by indigenous African people. Um, One thing that he asserts is that Norma came from Sumeria or Mesopotamia. Some I forget which one he said, and I'll get some clarification on that.
Hmm.
The other part of his assertion is that Champollion, I hope I ain't butchering his name too bad, who um, deciphered the Meta Netra, uh, that he did it incorrectly and it messed up Kemet's timeline. This is the assertion, and because it messed up Kemet's timeline, Norma wasn't Dynasty One; he was Dynasty Zero. This is all in an effort to historically place the Exodus. And you threw something out there. I can't remember exactly what it was, but go into that if you will, with whatever information you have on it, if you can.
Right. So first, I'll deal with Nara being from Mesopotamia. That is definitely incorrect. Um, Nara was a Nubian, and he was part of the early dynastic period, and so he came up from Nubia and went into the Nile Valley region and reigned there. But again, he's just only part of that dynastic period. Uh, what I mentioned was that there was someone before Number, and that's something a lot of people don't discuss that we have a particular affinity for here at Team Osiris. Number was a successor to a proto dynastic king. There was someone who came before him that reigned. And you can, if you look at the king's list, you can see that there are predecessors before he comes into play. He's just part of the dynastic period. So what I mentioned in the back chat was about King Scorpion. He's from one of the early pre-dynastic rulers. These are people that are native to that land before Narmer even comes into the picture, and these people reign Egypt, that area, for a period of time. You're talking about the Nakata 2, Nakata 3 periods. You're talking about 4,000 BC. So these people ran that area well before Narmer comes into the picture. And all I was saying was that Narmer, a lot of people get the misconception that Narmer was the first, and he's not necessarily the first.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. And I have heard a little bit about King Scorpion, but not a whole lot. So I'm looking forward to possibly having you on in the future
Okay.
to break that thing down as well. So uh, now, have you heard anything about this notion of Kemet's timeline being off, and that's somehow why the Exodus is missed historically?
I have heard it, but the the issue with that is that there's a king's list that lines up with the historical account, and that king's list has to be proven flawed. And so a lot of times what people try to do is they try to take the biblical narrative and build a timeline according to the biblical narrative and then try to match that with history, when it should be the other way around, because history exists before the narrative was even created. So you have to see if the narrative matches history, and it doesn't. There's a lot of contradictions with that. And so what they try to do is to try to shoehorn or pigeonhole certain areas in history that make sense according to the biblical narrative, and try to say, okay, here's where the Bible is true at, here's my fact, or here's my evidence. But again, like I said, the King's List exists, and it contradicts that whole notion.
Got you. I appreciate that. Yeah, that I'm like, because I know, I know that this Exodus thing is not an historical event.
Right.
And it's like the lengths that are being, taken to try to place it in history is just amazing. But I'm like, okay, I'm not as versed as I will be and as I would like to be. And so I'm like, I gotta find somebody who can break this thing down. And when you mentioned that, I was like, okay, when I get the brother on, I'm definitely gonna ask him about that.
Yeah. The thing about Exodus is one of the most important focal points within the narrative. It's a convincing event that expresses the strengths of the deity in the narrative. So that is one of the focal points. You remove the Exodus from the narrative doesn't necessarily stick as much. So the Exodus is a strong point within that narrative. And another thing that I will express to you and your viewers is that when you look at the biblical scholars' consensus, no biblical scholar agrees that Exodus happened.
Exactly.
They understand that this is something that is likely not happened. But what they try to do is come up with excuses or theories that could try to make it happen, but they all have their own theories. So they can't even agree on the theory of the Exodus, let alone accept the fact that the Exodus actually happened. So that's something you're going to have a problem with when someone wants to prove the Exodus. Is the actual biblical scholars can't even come to an agreement if the Exodus did exist based on the information that they're presenting. So they automatically, by default, agree that it's likely to not have ever existed. And again, this is a focal point within the narrative. This is one of the things that the people try to prove because it helps the narrative stay stronger. It's the same as trying to prove the existence of Christ in the New Testament. Christ is the focal point within that narrative. You remove him from that narrative, the narrative doesn't have as much of an effect as it would with him there. So that's a strong point that a lot of people try to prove, but again, they're trying to line up the narrative with reality, and they're going to find fault with that.
Got you. It make perfect sense. Yeah, I definitely appreciate it. All right, MVP.
What's up, man?
So I'm curious to see how you're gonna answer this question.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you so polarizing to our brothers and sisters in the Abrahamic faith? Because it seems like it don't matter if it's a Hebrew Israelite, a Christian, a Moor, a Muslim. Why is the MVP so polarizing to our brothers and sisters within that paradigm?
Ah, man, that's that might be one you might have to ask the guys.
Yeah, I could tell him. He shoots.
Yeah, that's something you might have to ask.
Okay. Okay.
Chris shoots 10,000 jump shots every night. Period.
Okay. So he Michael Jordan and Larry Bird.
10,000 jump shots every night. Before he goes to bed, knocks them out.
Okay.
But he. No, everybody has, like I said, everybody has a bias, a confirmation bias, and in my opinion, Chris a lot of times just sticks with the information. He sticks with what is true, with what can be presented, and he approaches it from an unbiased perspective. But like how I said earlier before the show started, you have to be delicate in your approach, like a surgeon, because a lot of people have built up an identity over these texts, these belief systems. They built up an identity, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's actually psychologically beneficial. It's just that when you come up against someone who opposes that, you have to defend that, because that's, again, with an identity, that's you. You're saying that this biblical narrative explains or defines you. So you're going to always have pushback because there's an identity attached with it. These people do not study the text as is. They don't take it from a philosophical perspective or a metaphysical perspective. It's all about proving who they are. It's all about feeling significant and special and separated from everybody else in the world. And so Chris doesn't attach that with his research. And so he's able to be meticulous with it, but he's gonna always bump heads with these people because they claim that this is them. And there's no way to stop that. That's based on the people themselves. But over time, Chris can get more surgical with his approach, and that could help convert some people. I critique him all the time. He could be more surgical with it, and that would help. But as of right now, he's still gonna bump heads with some people, and that's just the nature of information. When you find something that's contrary to what someone believes, they're gonna automatically deny it.
Yeah, it's a form of cognitive dissonance.
Yes.
When you meet somebody with information that that deconstructs that original paradigm, they'll begin to get very hostile sometimes. You understand? You saw the room. They asked me, show me something that correlates with the Bible. I said, okay, let's go to the pyramid text of Saqqara. And I said, well, here it is right here. And they all went crazy. They all got mad. They started reading Paul, started reading the book of Revelation. They would ask me a compound question. Everybody jumping on me. And when I tried to answer one question, shut up, don't answer it that way. I don't know. Like I said earlier, the results that I wanted, I'm no longer getting. You understand what I'm saying? The results that I want, I'm not gonna get. You understand what I'm saying?
Counsel.
He'll come right back. He probably lost the signal from me. He'll jump right back in. But if you look at it, nobody debates more than the Hebrew Israelites. They love to debate. They love to bang on Africa. They love to give out all this misinformation, such as the one with Narmer. Well, they got the dates wrong, so he was actually 0 dynasty, not the first dynasty. Okay, fine. What articles or what research or what archaeological research have you brought forth to say that Narmer comes from Mesopotamia? What scholars or archaeologists line up with what it is that you're teaching? You understand what I'm saying? Show me how they got the dates wrong. Explain that to me. Can you do a PowerPoint presentation that can explain this to us so we can follow you along? You understand what I'm saying? Why do you guys always try and shift the African narrative in order to shoehorn the biblical narrative? Because if you take Egypt out of the biblical narrative, their story does not exist. It's just that simple. And one more time, it's not about banging on Egypt, but Egypt was the city that everyone saw when they came into the Levant and they went further into the interiors of Africa. They saw that city that Ramses built. They saw it. They saw how beautiful it was. So here it is, instead of embracing a history that you can identify with, that you can look at and say, that's something that my ancestors built. Just don't stop in Egypt. Go to Nubia. Go to Ethiopia. Come on home to West Africa. Let's learn about Nox civilization. 10,000 BCE. You understand what I'm saying? Forging metal. You know how hot you got to get to forge some metal? Do you know how hot you got to get a furnace to do that? These were advanced civilizations. And he may have a point. Nobody may know how old Egypt really is. You may not know. I mean, we look at the Sphinx. The Sphinx dates what? Some people say 15,000 years. Some people say 40,000. Some people say 20,000. But we know it's Africans that built it. We know they put it there. You understand what I'm saying? Brothers that look like you, Pianki, you, Melvin, and especially Brother Kansu Sheshmu Amun. They look just like you. And instead of embracing that and saying, this was a culture, albeit it might be not as practiced anymore, but this was a culture and a civilization that I could look at and say, if we all bring our heads together, we can do something great on a grand scale. That's what I teach the pyramids represented. They represent that the people who built those nations and those civilizations, they were saying, hey, look, we're an advanced civilization and we're building on a grand scale. And that's what all those things meant. And that's what they represent. No proof for an Exodus, though. Let me refrain. Let me continue to say that. You can't prove it. So stop teaching that nonsense. Those stories, there's a lot of stories that come from.
All right, fellas. This is a question for everybody. And I just kind of want y'all opinion on it because it's something I noticed since I've been engaging with the quote unquote conscious community. Because I made a video where I said I guess I'm not conscious because I noticed like everything. It's almost like another religion to where, you know, I had a sister tell me, you know, she asked me, do I eat meat? I said, yeah, I try not to eat as much as I recently dropped some weight and I'm trying to keep it that way. So, you know, I'm doing everything in moderation that I can. But well, yeah, if you eat meat, you're not conscious. Okay, you know, and same thing, a brother. Well, you know, you get your kids shots. If you trust the government, you're not conscious. All of these different little rules that I'm like, wait a minute. So when it comes to the quote unquote conscious community, to me, in some ways, it seems like it's just as religious as the so-called religious beliefs and groups that they bang against. Am I on the wrong track in that line of thinking, or am I, or can y'all relate to that?
Definitely. I mean, I could say that it's actually more counterproductive. When you look at it on a whole, you look at the Catholic Church or any kind of sect of religion, most of it, for the most part, except for the extremists, are pretty productive in society. You don't see productive counterparts coming out of, or byproducts coming out of the conscious community. What you see is a lot of fringe interpretations of things, a lot of buzzwords, a lot of Afrocentrism. And a lot of people used to get upset with Team O.S.I.R.I.S because we had a problem with Afrocentricity. And we do when it's used as a cult, when it's not used properly to objectify the world. Afrocentrism was supposed to objectify your relativity of being African to the world. Not as long as it's black, it works. If I eat chew sticks all day, it works. But I had heart failure, diabetes, high blood pressure, and I was slowly dying. And I just cleaned up my diet and I eat meat and it saved my life. When I was a vegetarian, I almost died. So can't nobody tell me what Dr. Sadie talking about because he in the ground. And last time I checked, vegetarians in the cemetery too. So it's not, again, it's that misinformation cloaked in superficial information and the ability for someone to be pragmatic and a demagogue in their own space to make them appear to be credible. But a lot of stuff that they say is incredible, and people are wooed by the fact that it is. And the conscious community at one point was a good parameter, but this was before me and you came along. This is before the evolution of people like myself and you and Melvin and Chris and other people that are independently now being able to freely research and gain understanding for themselves. And now you just can't stand in front of a crowd and not somebody not source you on the spot. Well, no, sir, that's not what they said. Would you break that down? And that's created a problem. And that's where the conscious community is kind of falling short. You know, when you had the elders like Bobby Hennett and Phil Valentine and these guys, great. You know, I loved them. Growing up, man, they said some things, man, had me just in awe. But they had their time and they opened the way for people like ourselves to take on the mantle. Right now, Bobby Hemmett would not be complete information. It would be pseudo. It's not disrespectful. It's just that he had his time and his elevation. He had his technology at his disposal. Now we do. And we're seeing things in a different light. So the conscious community is not what it was, and I don't think it'll ever be.
Peace. That's peace. MVP, go in on that if you will.
That's just something to make people feel credible. You know, you eat meat, don't take shots, don't vote. All of these things which your ancestors died for. Let me explain something to you. Your ass didn't have a choice what you was gonna eat when you was a slave. Your ass couldn't vote. Your ass couldn't go to certain schools. Whatever they threw out there into that field, that's what you ate. Whatever they put in that big ass pot, that's what you grabbed a spoon and a bowl and they fed you. So the one thing I do not do and engage in is dietary conversations. If somebody want to eat pork, they can eat pork. If somebody want to eat red meat, they can eat red meat. If somebody want to get drunk all day, they can get drunk. That does not make you do not lose credibility as a person with me. The only way you lose credibility with a person as me is when you don't take care of your family as a man or as an adult in the decisions that you make. Because I'm not going to want to be around you if you're constantly making bad decisions, because those decisions can affect me. I mean, come on, man. You think I'm about to be out with a group of brothers or women and say, hey, man, I don't want to mess with you no more because you eat that. You know, I was in a barber's chair one time and I opened up a McDonald's burger. And he took a step back and he said, that's offensive to me. And I said, what are you talking about? This one, they still had the bacon double cheeseburgers, right? Y'all, I don't know if you remember.
No
And
doubt.
he said, that's offensive to me. I said, why is it offensive to you? He said, because I don't eat pork. And I said, oh, all right, like that. And he said, I'm a Muslim. I said, but I'm paying you to cut my hair.
Right.
I'm not asking you what's offensive to you. So you know what I did? And I said, well, since it's offensive to you, hey, Mark, you got any? I'm finna come get in your chair. That $10 haircut, which I always pay you $25 to cut my hair, Mark gonna get now.
Exactly.
You understand what I'm saying? So let's stop with the pseudo consciousness all the time. Your ass don't need a vaccine, because there are people in Africa that will die for those vaccines. All right? Let's stop all the conspiracy theory nonsense. All right? We can be like Kansu, for instance. He ain't getting on there talking about no conspiracy theories. He opens up his channel and he deals with finance, economics. But you think niggas want to hear that? Can I say nigga right now? Is it okay?
Speak your
Niggas don't want to hear
speech.
that shit. It's too intelligent. It's shit. He was saying some things the other day, got me looking at $500 I got in my pocket, man. Like, let me just throw this on underneath my mattress for a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Let me just put this away for the side for a little bit. You know what I'm saying? I don't need that right now. So, I mean, it's a lot of things in the conscious community. It's almost like these guys are becoming like pseudo pimps, misinformation pimps. You know what I'm saying? Show me the information that say I'm gonna die earlier if I eat red meat. Show me the information that says I'm gonna die a lot quicker if I eat pork. My aunt is 78 years old and she's been smoking since she was 15 years old. Don't matter. If a person has something intelligent to say to you and there's something that you can learn from that person, that's all that should matter. That's all that should matter. That's why I tell people, you know, just kind of like changing the tone. When I hear people hating on Jesus, I'm like, what do you hate Jesus for? It's the best thing in the book. You know what I'm saying? Like, you get what I'm saying? And you just look at these guys, and just be all like, yo, a lot of the arguments that we bring forth sometimes about what a person does on his personal time. You know, you see all these arguments, online engagements, like people open up YouTube, talk all day to each other, and argue all night. Like, do you have a wife at home? Do you have children? I know most of you all do. If you guys want to do this, just get on the phone with each other. You're putting yourself out there in front of the world. And when the world sees us, that's what they see. Oh, look at the unintelligent black men fighting and arguing over nothing.
Nothing.
White man, he thinking about power, economics, capitalism, rule. Like so I said, I'm growing out of certain paradigms now. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what else to say. Don't come at me talking about what kind of meat and food you eat. I could care less.
Brother, yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, like I say, I straight up made a video. It's on my channel. I guess I'm not conscious because I couldn't. I'm like, so you saying I trust the government because I get shots? Number one, that's an African concept. They got that from us. Inoculation came from us. We showed them how to do that, number one. Number two, what can you do in this country as a citizen of this country where you don't trust the government? If you eating food, it's FDA approved. If you buying clothes, it's Trade Commission approved. So you trust the government too. If that's like, what are you talking about?
It's
My
like
bad.
a lot of stuff that they say. It's like a lot of stuff that they say. You be like, man, that ain't even practical. What you talking about?
Yeah,
it's not even practical. Like it's just like I said. You're just trying to argue at this point. You know what I'm saying? I don't get it. I was just listening to some brother said one guy came on there and they was talking about Trump's platinum plan that he has for black people. Now, of course, I have heard nothing about this until a couple of weeks ago. And yes, it sounds like a good idea, right? But he knows, watch this. Trump now knows that the black vote is going to swing this election. He knows. So what does he try to do? He'll say something like that so we can all get to running out there. And these same brothers that claim to be conscious will ignore 4 years of bullshit. 4 years of bullshit.
sir.
And say, we want to vote for the Trump plan. And you know what? Rightfully so. They had every right to vote for whoever they want to vote for. Rightfully so. But don't say in the same breath, yeah, niggas ain't done nothing for us. Black people ain't done nothing for us in office. Don't let that come out your mouth because that was the next thing that came out the man's mouth. And I said, whoa. If you want to vote for Trump and his plan, be my guest. But what makes you say something like that? And you're supposed to be conscious. You're supposed to be conscious. I don't get it. What makes you say something like that? And where did that come from? Well, the first thing you do is you destroy your own people.